Welcome everybody. In this video we're going to be adding items to cart and then also fetching our cart. My setup today is going to be a little bit different because I had to switch from a Windows to a Mac, so I thought it would be interesting to actually go through the process of resetting up the environment. So I pulled the source code down before I closed Insomnia, before I've managed to extract the curl request and save it in the insomnia curl.md, and let's see how quickly I can get back to the setup that I was in. Leaving the insomnia request there for just a second, what I want to do is same things that we've done before. First of all, set up the virtual environment, virtual env. Currently the command is not found, and on my MacBook I have to type in pip3, standing for Python 3, and I want a pip3 install virtual env. Once this is installed, I'm going to rerun the command, and I should get my venv. Getting some annoying pop-up from VS Code that I don't really care about. And now let's do the same thing that we would do on Windows. We would try go into scripts, and script is missing. If I open up venv and I try to look for a similar script that says activate, lib would be similar to just when I install libraries and packages, they're going to go into there. Inside bin, I have activate. Let's go into bin and call activate. The permissions issue here is more of a you can't execute this sort of thing. If I use the source command, I can activate my virtual environment, and then if I want to deactivate it, I do the same. Inside my virtual environment, I want to use pip3 install -e and the current project. Took a little bit, but that is now done. We have the usual artifacts when we install packages that we don't really care about, but the application should be usable now. If I go into shop main and just remind myself what is the script that I'm using, which should just be default, going into setup.py, I want to use the scrape shop command. Let's see if that still provides me with an output of JSON, and it does. Cool. If I close this output and now I grab the curl request, I will go into Insomnia. I'll create a new collection. I'll call it web scraping for these tutorials that I'm doing, and I'm going to add a new request, going to be an HTTP request, and if I just paste in the curl that I had, it is going to recreate my request. I can now execute it and I should get the same result. Let me just make everything a little bit bigger so you can actually see it on screen. And there we have it. I'm essentially right back where I was at developing on my other machine, with just a couple of things that are different. Back to the main topic of the video, we want to add an item to cart and then also be able to retrieve the cart and see what kind of items we have in there. Let's make sure we understand how item adding works. We're gonna search for an NVIDIA, and I want my graphics card, so let's just also type in card. We have PC components. Let's just zoom in on the graphics cards and NVIDIA over here. It doesn't really matter what NVIDIA we want. That looks pretty expensive. Let's have one of those. It is going to be the add to basket command or button, which is going to issue the command, issue the request to the server, which we are interested in. Let's go ahead and see what does the HTTP request look like when we're going to click on add basket. If you have a bunch of things in your network tab, perhaps this is where you want to clear everything and click on add to basket. The first request that happens here is going to be the asynchronous JavaScript request, which is highlighted by this XHR type over here. If we want to filter out all of the garbage that we don't care about and just look at the asynchronous JavaScript request, we can filter by fetch or /XHR request. Fetch is just a newer way of making JavaScript HTTP requests. Let's go ahead and open this up. This is a post request, similar to how we had the query, to this URL, and then we have this payload. We can see that this queue is being submitted. If I come back and I take a look at the output that I have, and I'll format this document, I'm not actually getting the SKU. Let's quickly add the functionality for getting this SKU, which is going to be pivotal to adding this item to the cart. This acts as a sort of an identifier. Another thing that we have here is a token. The token may be or may not be important to adding the item to the cart. Generally, for issuing actions on a shop, there is a little bit of protections that websites implement. So we might need to get around it. We have abstract skew. Let's go ahead and search for skew, any occurrences that we have here. And in concrete data, we have GX075PN. Let's just see that OC UK. We can see that this first part here, we can sanitize it and then get the last one, or pretty much get the real deal, which is what I'm gonna say we want. I'm gonna come back to the code. We're gonna go into main.py, scroll down to where we are getting all of this information. I will duplicate this line of code. I will say that this is an identifier or a skew. Instead of using abstract name, I wanna go into concrete data. So concrete data, and then further take the skew. And just making sure that the key is correct. It is. There we have it. Let's rerun the script. Look at output.json again. I will actually close it and not save it and reopen it because it has been recollected, and reformat that document. And now I have an identifier by which I can start adding these products to the cart. Now that we're one step closer to adding a product with a specific quantity to a cart, we have to understand what is a cart. How do we know to add it to the cart? And generally, your cart is represented by an authentication session or a cookie. This is where if we extract a cookie, we can actually submit requests against that cookie and put things into the cart using that cookie. To find out which cookie is responsible for the cart, this is where perhaps it will be a little bit easier to try to read the cart before we start putting things into there. Let's make this a little bit smaller, and we're gonna clear the network tab. This is hovering over the cart. If we click on it and we go to the cart, I'm expecting this to load the cart. Here's all the information that we have, and you can see that it's going on /cart. It doesn't really matter if we make a request that returns JSON or HTML, we know that we can parse any data. If I go to all over here and I take this cart endpoint, which is just a get request over here, let's copy it, go over here. This I'm going to rename to search product, and then I will add another HTTP request, which is going to be get cart. Here I'm just going to place overclockers.co.uk/cart. It will give me an empty cart because no way is it going to know how to identify me as a user. And by the way, here on the settings of the get request, let's just make sure that we disable send cookies automatically, store cookies automatically, and the rest is fine. We can close this, send this request, and we will see that our shopping cart is empty. If we come back to the browser and we will take a look at the request headers, at the cookie headers right over here, we will see a bunch of cookies. All the semicolons in between are going to be essentially delimiters between cookies. So we have a lot of cookies. If we take a look at the application tab, cookies, overclockers, here are a bunch of names of the cookies, and then there are their values. If I can collapse some of this stuff because this is not very nicely laid out, things like language and then ledger currency, GBP and ENGP, we can guess that this does not correlate with what we have in our cart. We can go ahead and just delete these two cookies, reset or refresh the page, and the items from our cart haven't disappeared. We can use this method to essentially understand which cookie is responsible for our cart. Cookie consent, I'm going to remove this, and then there is going to be the apay session.set. I'm also going to say that this is probably not our cart session. The consent is you agreeing to their cookie policies, and that is a cookie in and of itself. Let's give this a refresh. The item is still there. We are prompted for a consent again. So I'm going to consent to their cookie policies, and we figured out that it's not the language or the ledger currency. It's not the apay session set because that has something to do probably with like Amazon Pay or whatever. And then the cookie consent, and sorry, I clicked the button and that's why everything refreshed. Cookie consent was the cookie consent, so it must be the overclockers.co.uk value here that is responsible for the cart. Okay. Coming back to the network, let's just make sure that we get our cart page somewhere over here. Again, let's copy the value, all of it. Come back here, go to headers, cookies. You can double check the name of the header, which is just cookie. So even though you can specify many cookies, it is just a cookie header. This is going to look a little bit mental. Insomnia is not the best for letting me edit this here. So instead of copying the whole thing, I'm actually just going to copy the overclockers.co.uk cookie, which goes up to the semicolon over here. I'm going to take this, including the semicolon. Let's place this over here, and there we have it. Let's send the request. And now I have the cart with the item in there. We know that this cookie is responsible for adding items to the cart. Let's prepare our next request. We'll say add item. From what we remember of adding this NVIDIA card, this was a post request that had some kind of JSON body. Okay, don't worry, we are gonna keep adding more graphics cards. So let's just say graphics card. We have a bunch of add to basket buttons, so let's make this slightly bigger so we're ready to inspect requests. We're gonna add to basket. There is our request. The prompt that it was successful, don't care about that. Let's open this up, and what do we have it? We have a post to this request URL. Let's copy it, go over here, paste it. Let's come back and let's make sure that it is indeed the JSON payload that is being sent here. And it's actually not. It says query string parameters. The query string is the bit after the path, which is the individual parameters like SKU, quantity. The first query parameter has a question mark, and then all the following ones will have an ampersand. The bit before the query string is the path, then you have the address or the domain, and then you have the schema. You're gonna forget all of these parts, but you will be reminded again and again what they called, and just remember that all of these parts have their respective names. Anyway, the main interesting bits of information are the SKU and the quantity, and then there is this random token. From experience, this is generally a cross-site request forgery token that can be in here, some kind of tracking token, depending if you're a customer, you're trying to buy something, perhaps it could be that kind of token. So you need to figure out, is this token going to break requests for you, or is this just a tracking token? Tracking token, you generally can get rid of them. If it's a protection token sort of thing, you need to keep these, and perhaps you need to see how they get generated. One way that we can see this is if we take a look at the first three letters and just remember them, D64. Generally with these tokens, if they're security tokens, if we go down and look on the request headers, we will also find a cookie or a header on the request with the matching token number. So D64, I'm not seeing it anywhere in here. I'm going to first assume that this token is complete bogus. We don't need it. Let's come back to the request that we were making here. I am going to slowly make my way over to where &_token is being appended and flat out just remove it. I'm going to go to get card. I'm going to go to headers over here, and I'm going to grab my cookie, back to add item. Content JSON actually doesn't matter. Let's say that we're not posting a body. Cookie, and then here we're going to put our cookie. First of all, let's go to get cart. Let's see what our cart looks like. We have two items over here. Let's come back and let's just empty the item that we're about to re-add. So whatever this power cooler is, let's get rid of it. There it is. Let's come back. Let's verify that we don't have it on this end as well. Perfect. Let's come back to add item and let's send this. We get a 500 error, which indicates to me that my assumptions about the cookie were incorrect. So I will scroll all the way back up here to grab the token and see if I can reuse it. Come back over here, place the token on the end and send. This still gives me an issue, so this gives me two hints. Either the consent cookie is kind of like saying, listen, you haven't consented and I can't see your consent agreement on here, so perhaps maybe some kind of other cookie is involved here, or the token gets regenerated every single time. So perhaps we need to do a little bit more work to actually make the generation of this token ourselves. Let's come back over here. Let's first rule out all of the cookie stuff. Coming all the way down, I will just grab all of the cookies that I have, all of these values. come back here, place them over here, and send. This now tells me that the token is the real issue here. And when you are doing this type of work, which is essentially reverse engineering, I'm gonna remove the cookies on the end here to basically go back a step. This is what you want to be doing. You want to be making a step forward, going back a step. You never want to be doing more than one change at a time. This is how you probe. This is how you find out if what you're doing is going to work. Now, ruling out the theory that underscore token is going to be regenerated every single time, and we can also try to take a look at how it is generated. For this, I'm going to actually close this. We are gonna clear the network log, and first of all, let's search for an NVIDIA card. There we have it, see details, and then this one we can add to basket. Here I will just clear everything. I will click add to basket. I will look at this and we can see that the token again is different. The next question is, where does this token come from? First thing to do is let's go to the application, and judging by the first values D44, before we had this D64 or something like that, by the first couple of values that this is nowhere to be found in the cookie, it's probably not a cookie that is contributing to the generation of this token. Then we can take a look at the session storage. Let's take a look here. CDN, we don't have anything. Here we don't have anything either. And in here we have the cookie consent bulk settings, bulk consent, some kind of ticket, some kind of reset domains. Nothing here looks that interesting. If we come back to network, we can go ahead and add the same product again to see if it's changing at all. If we take a look, it is identical. If we scroll down to maybe another product without refreshing the page, let's just search for NVIDIA. Here we have a laptop. If I scroll down in the network tab, I am gonna make a request. Take a look at this, and that's not a product, so I want to take a look at this, and it looks like the token is still the same. To double check, I'm gonna scroll up and I'm gonna quickly jump. I can copy this text. However, by now my eyes are kind of used to it, so switching between two requests, I can see the SKU is changing. However, the token isn't changing. This tells us that the token is persisted. It is somewhere in there, but it is in memory. You can find where this token is, and this is how we're going to do it. Let's close this request, let's flush, and let's revisit the page. Now we have the full history of all the requests that are being made. We will add to basket, successfully added, and in here we are going to have this token. Let's take the token value, and you can see that this time it's a new token. We're gonna Ctrl+C to copy it, and now if we close this, we press Ctrl+F, and this is gonna give us another search window where we're not searching inside the request, we're searching globally. Let's look for this token, and here you can see where this request is being seen. The big root that I'm seeing here is on $query NVIDIA. That is the initial load of the page. When you load the page first, that is when we see the token. Let's go ahead and open that initial request. And by the way, the second request is the /add Ajax cart request, which is the one that is adding the item to the cart. So we are not really interested in this one. We are interested in the first request. Let's collapse this down. We can close this and we can take a look at the initial request that is being made here. Let's go to the preview, or rather the response. So this is just a bunch of HTML, and you already know how to extract data from HTML. Let's look for this here, and there it is. Look at it. Beautiful. And it's prefixed with token. Even better. Let's scroll all the way to the left to see what kind of element contains this token. And I mean, the element looks weird, but we have a CK Algolia search element, which basically tells me it's a web component. And then there is a token attribute that's attached to it. Okay, we can do the easiest things first. Let's go ahead and copy the HTML. Create a new file, query.html, place this over here, and here we can search for the token again, and quickly scroll through the search results until we end up on the same element, or probably would have been easier to just search for this specific value. And there it is. And actually, let me double check that there is only one occurrence of this here. Yep, there is only one. Here we have it. So it is token, and then there is some kind of payload actually inside of here. So product labels, and you can see that there's just a bunch of stuff in there. And perhaps the easiest thing to do here will be to use something like regex, but I don't know yet. So let's check this out. Let's come back all the way here. We are searching for CK Algolia search. If we learned anything about XPath, we can go to elements and try search for it here. So / CK Algolia. There we have it. So we should be able to find it. Come back over here, go into main, and we'll collapse the terminal for now, remove the search over there. I'm gonna paste CK Algolia search over here. I'm gonna go into wiki main to just grab the logic for doing all the sys stuff. So import sys, I'll then paste this over here. Let's remove the first one, and here we will really just specify what command we're trying to run. If command equals test, let's just execute this clause. The rest of the stuff doesn't really matter. At the end, I will just return. Let's take the file reading option. We're gonna instead of output JSON, let's use query HTML, and this is actually the directory from which I'm gonna be running it. So it's gonna be root. So I'm gonna move it to root. We want to read this file, so we have file. Let's read all of it. We are going to have our HTML. Going into Wikifighters, quickly just grabbing selector from the parcel library, parcel package even. Let's move this up top. We are going to load it this way, actually working with HTML here. Indent this slightly. We will have the selector, HTML passing it over there. Beautiful. From the selector, let's use XPath to select our CK Algolia search. This is going to give us our element, and for now, let's go ahead and print this element to make sure that we're getting it. Let's rerun our application, and we're going to run test. Name CK is not defined because that was, not Python syntax. There we have our element. Let's come back to query real quick, and if we scroll to the side a little bit before we start seeing the big payload, that looks like the product labels attribute that we're after. Let's take the product labels attribute, come back to main py, and here, same as previously in Wikifighters, if we scroll down where we were getting the href, like that, because href is an attribute, so we can try grab href here as well. Product labels, and we're gonna get here. Let's run the scrape again, and we're gonna see something like this. Not exactly what we're after. Let's come back to query HTML, and let's scroll to the side until we see something like dynamic refinement list, which actually points to single quotes as well. So now I'm thinking that token is no longer part of some crazy attribute. Let's go ahead and just try to get the token attribute itself, like that. And there we have it. We have a token. So before you add an item to cart, you have to query the website, get a token, and let's actually verify this. We're not just gonna hit the query URL, we're gonna hit the regular URL and see if we just get the token by itself. And before we actually do any of that, let's grab the token. Let's go to Insomnia, and let's make sure that we can actually post it. Let's put this, it's a little bit awkward to scroll over here. I'm gonna go to token, here's the value, replace it, and send. We still have a 500, so what are the clues? We've seen that you can use the token for multiple requests. Okay, so we're getting the token, and we know we have the correct cookie that represents our cart. We have those. Other reasons for why a addition of an item to a cart or some kind of action can fail is because the actual request, let's go to the network tab, may contain some additional headers that actually prevent this request. Let's add to basket. There we have it. Let's scroll all the way down where we have the skew over here. Let's go to headers, and the course of action looks something like this. We need to take a look at the user agent. For example, let's grab it, go over here. We'll say user agent, paste the value over here, send the request. Doesn't work. Let's keep going. Things like origin, referrer. Let's take origin, place it over here, grab overclockers like that, paste this over here, and referrer is a good one to grab as well. These two headers are essentially cross-site request forgery protection, and this is why including them is a good idea. Let's retry this request. Still failing. Let's just make sure that it's not the SKU that I'm trying to add, like a product that is out of stock or something like that. Let's just make sure I changed the SKU. Send. Still an issue. Let's come back to the headers. We'll go further down. Just gonna make sure that I have all of these on the request that I'm sending. This will look something like this. Let's send this again. Still an issue. By this time we can double check that the time isn't an issue. So for example, the token isn't going to expire. Let's add to basket, and here we should have F97. Let's scroll to the latest request. We have F97, so that shouldn't be an issue. Let's scroll all the way back down and start including these headers. For example, accept encoding, accept language, content length, and content type. If a request is still failing, let's make sure that we're including all the cookies this time. Let's put them on. We still get an internal server error. Madness. I sure hope this is not going to be about the accept header. This is like the least used header ever. So we included every single header and their dog, and it's still not working. Let's double check the query that we're not missing like an S or something like that. Here we have the SKU, we have the quantity, and so generally sometimes you're gonna make errors like this where, for example, your request may have been working. I have missed out an ampersand over here. So, you know, sometimes you gotta do your due diligence, but that is what can happen. Let's put an ampersand here. Let's send, and that looks like it's working. Let's come back to headers. Let's remove all the stuff that we think we don't need, all the cookie stuff. We will get rid of the rest of the stuff as well, and we'll see how much we actually need to post this request. I'll send this again, and the request is still successful. Coming back over here, going to the cart, and I'm just gonna make sure I see the changes over here. I think I've added one product a couple of times, so hopefully that doesn't look too weird. Let's go ahead and clear the cart. Removed a couple of items over there. What do we want to do? We know that we can extract a token. We want to attach the token to the query, and we also want to attach the cookie. We have the cookie value, so first of all, let's go ahead and just save it. Otherwise, you can also get it from the response, but I will just say that this is going to be my cookie, and this is our cart. What we'll call add to cart, and then there should be a SKU that we're adding, that there is a SKU that sits at position 2, and actually add to cart. I realized that is going to be a little bit too verbose to type out. So my scrolly wheel is a little bit more sensitive than it is on the Windows machine, so pardon if I scroll a little bit too much. But first we want to go to requests, we want to get the URL. Let's come back over here. We are just going to call overclockers. I'm going to use it without the actual NVIDIA query. I am assuming they're just going to put the token in there. Why not? This is going to be the initial response, and generally you will need to do stuff like this, where you will make an initial response to get some kind of token. From the response, you're going to get the text that is going to be loaded into the selector. We're going to have not an element, but rather a token for our requests. Let's get rid of the rest of the stuff here. And let's just print and make sure that we can get the token. Opening up the terminal, scrape instead of test, we're gonna add a DSF and we can see a token. Perfect. Coming back to the website, we want to find the SKU that we were adding. Actually, I realized that probably NVIDIA not gonna be able to find it there. Here we have it. Here is something that we're just gonna add to basket to get the URL that we've been calling. Here it is. Let's grab it, come back to our application, and this is going to be add to cart URL, place an F and then quotes, and then just a big value. Let's make sure we get rid of the token, and we're going to be supplying a token that we have just extracted. Instead of the SKU, we want to be supplying the SKU that we have supplied to the script. So just SKU. Quantity, you can also supply the quantity if you want to, but, and again, pardon the scrolly wheel, I will need to fix that. This will be the add to cart URL, and remember what this looks like. We need to be making a requests post to add to cart URL, and then we have data that we can post. Data is nothing at this point. The main endpoint of interest will be the headers. So headers, and here we'll have a cookie header, which is going to be set to this value. However, this value needs to be assigned to some kind of key. And the specific key is overclockers co UK. I think I didn't select anything there. Yep, I did not. Select this again. Oh, there we go. Proper selection. Complicated tasks, right? So there we go. We make the request, we make the response, and by the way, this is a horrible thing to do, to name a response this way and name a response an identical response. Which response is which response? You no longer understand what this response actually represents. So let's name these accordingly. This is a token response that we want to put over here, and this is a add to cart response. I'm gonna go over here and I'm just gonna print the status code to make sure, was it successful, was it not successful, and we're just gonna see if we have been successful. Let's clear our cart so we can actually visually see that we have been successful. The website is a little bit slow, so this might take me a couple of seconds. There we have it, the website is empty. I am actually gonna grab a SKU from one of my outputs right over here. Let's try this SKU. So going to main py, let's open up the terminal, scrape shop, and we're going to just add this SKU. I think that will be okay. And we get a 200. Coming back over here, refresh, and the cart is still empty. Potentially, I might think that the product is maybe not available, ISO stock 0. Let's look for something that actually has stock. Everything is sitting nicely around 0. Oh, actually, there's one at 15. Let's try this one. So remove this product, run this one, come back here, refresh. Still nothing. Let's double check that what we are doing in main.py, let me actually close query.html, that the text of the add to cart response contains some kind of message around what is actually happening. So looks like some kind of unexpected error is happening. Let's search for NVIDIA. We will scroll all the way back down here where we had queries. Let's take a look at the preview of the payload, and let's just grab a SKU of a product that we know is available. So at the second position, this is the Asus TUF. I don't know what that is, but concrete data, let's grab this. So LT2HP blah 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 over here. Let's place this here. Not sure what is going wrong at this point. Let's make sure that we have add to cart URL that looks proper, and we're still failing. It could be that it matters which cookie is requesting the token. Let's take the addition of the cookie and also put it on the request that is going to be requesting the token. Let's bring this back here, rerun. And it looks like we are adding items successfully. So if we go to the cart, we have the item. So there you have it. Essentially, this video has been long enough, so you now know how to query the cart, how to add items to the cart, and what things to watch out for. This will be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section. If you want to say thank you, come support me on Patreon, get the source code. I will be putting the Insomnia requests into their individual MD documents if you're wondering. Big thank you to all of my patrons that are already currently supporting me. Hope everybody is staying healthy out there. Have a good day.